Having worked in creative sync licensing for more than 15 years, I've seen some things change drastically while other things have stubbornly remained the same. Rights ownership is as complex as ever, and the process for licensing music is still pretty baffling to most. Even simply figuring out who controls the rights to a song is complicated, much less contacting them and negotiating a licensing deal. Despite the best efforts of a lot of smart people, there's still no reliable centralized resource for finding out who to contact to license a particular song. It's one of the main reasons we all have jobs anyway. So in some regards, I guess I'm thankful nobody's figured out how to completely automate the process. The most notable change over the last few years has been who the players are, and more importantly, what else they could do for you. When I started out, it was mostly just labels and publishers licensing music that they own the rights to. Now the business is dominated by sync reps, who maintain relationships with key decision makers, keep up to date on every piece of music-driven media, pitch to brief and negotiate licensing agreements on behalf of their clients. The majors still have their in-house sync departments, but it's become increasingly common for them to farm out some of the labor-intensive work to reps. It's now also easier than ever for independent artists and labels to get synced, with essentially all media being fair game for all types of artists, regardless of whether or not they have a hit song on the radio. There's also more media in production than ever before, so it's a great time to be in this space. My name is John Mizrahi, and I'm a sync rep, so you can expect me to interject my own opinions into this conversation. I head up Bodega Sync, which is the sync licensing arm of Symphonic Distribution. We represent a diverse roster of emerging independent artists, labels, and producers with a strong focus on one-stop licensing. This means that we control 100% of the publishing and master rights, which makes licensing a convenient process. On our panel today, we have 4 incredibly talented sync professionals. We'll discuss the different types of reps that you're likely to encounter and help you understand what they do. First up, we have Lyle Hyson. Lyle, say hello.
Hiya.
Lyle's the founder and president of Bank Robber Music here in New York City. Bank Robber represents a massive roster of artists and iconic independent labels like Verge, Polyvinyl, Mute, Barnum, and Barsook, just to name a few. Next, we have Kurt DeBeek, CEO and CTO of SyncFloor. Hi, Kurt.
Hello.
SyncFloor is a tech-driven sync platform facilitating the licensing of high-quality music from nearly 100 labels, publishers, and distributors from around the world, like Believe, TuneCore, Motor Music, and Sub Pop. SyncFloor provides access to more than 20,000 tracks by independent artists to licensing clients such as fitness companies, ad agencies, production companies, podcasters, and local governments. Last but not least, we have Katrina Balsius.
Hello, everyone.
Katrina is head of sales for North America at Disco, which is the industry-leading content management platform for sync professionals. While not a sync rep herself, Katrina knows more of them than literally anyone in the world and has a unique perspective on the business. I want to thank everybody for participating in the panel. I'm very excited to have you here. Let's get started. Katrina, let's start with you. As I mentioned before, you know tons of sync reps, and your position at Disco requires a deep knowledge of how these businesses operate. What are some of the most interesting models that you've encountered, and what makes them stand out among the wide range of options available to content owners?
Yeah, it's interesting that you are the one moderating this panel, because kind of one of the main interesting trends that I've been noticing recently is just how the sync rep role is being added to like core marketing and distribution rights. It's not a new thing per se, like Symphonic and Bodega, the Orchard, AWOL, ADA, Believe, like they have long offered non-exclusive sync services and have been very, very successful in that. But there are some interesting models that are arising from like newer players, like United Masters, for example. They have started to secure blanket licenses with sporting franchises like the NBA. And then there's Ditto, who's also set up like an in-house publishing division, and they're able to then offer one-stop clearances. And this can be a really interesting route for some people to go in working with your distributor, because you can get more of like a global representation. Other interesting players out there are SoundCloud's Repost. They offer sync representation to artists, and they have some new initiatives with other like music networking and social platforms like Vamper, for example. They're getting into the sync rep game with their community of artists. But generally, like from Disco's perspective of being kind of the sync industry standard platform for global sync usage, there hasn't really been, I'd say, like any one business that's come along that's like totally changing the game and the way that music is licensed and placed. usually like the most successful models there are still the companies that are creating strong branded names for themselves from the rosters that they build, and really like honing in on the specialties that they have. So whether that's like advertising or trailers, or even creating bespoke music for some supervisor clients, there's so many people that are doing that really well. But there's like literally hundreds of sync reps out there. So if, that's something you're looking into exploring, like if you do a little bit of research and ask the community, you're going to be able to find a really cool partner to work with that's aligned with like your goals and vision and your values as well.
So our parent company, as you said, is a distributor, and it's been kind of a unique thing because I've always worked for content owners, and distributors don't really own content, they're just providing the services. So for us, as a distributor, obviously our core business is to distribute music to DSPs, but we also do label marketing services. So for us, sync is one of many different types of verticals. So that's kind of what I was interested in talking to you about, because I feel like there are many companies that just do like sync rep. And then, as you said, there are other ones that are sort of like, let's figure out how to fit sync into all these services so that, like a distributor can do your sync, or a publisher can do your sync, or a label can do your sync, or like SoundCloud, which is,
exactly, which is wild.
I didn't even know they were in the sync game, so that's like news to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, the cool thing about Disco is that they're centrally situated, where everybody who does sync kind of uses that service as a way for pitching music. So I think that you're kind of in the middle of all of it, and it's interesting to hear about those things.
Yeah. Another trend I've been noticing this past year is labels who are deciding to not work with their sync reps anymore because they're finding that they are getting like direct deals themselves. And obviously the past year and change has been really hard for a lot of bands and artists to make money. We're not touring. So sync obviously has been a forefront for a lot of folks. So one thing I have just been noticing is some labels are starting to use Disco and create their own like searchable libraries, which is like a newer addition that we have. So you're able to create kind of a portal to give music buyers access to search your catalog whenever they want. And since most of the music supervisor community is on Disco, it's good to kind of be in that ecosystem where they are and just use it as another tool in your toolkit to get exposure for sync.
Right, that's something we're actually doing right now as well, and we've been Disco curates these playlists as well that are they're essentially trying to help music supervisors find companies like us, which is also like as a relatively new sync agency, something that we're always conscious of, where I have my individual relationships with music supervisors, but it's really difficult to sort of advertise and find have people find you. So that's been a really valuable service for us as well. Moving on, so licensing platforms that offer access to high volume micro syncs are emerging as a compelling alternative or addition to traditional sync reps. Kurt, please give us a bit of an overview of this new frontier, including a brief explanation of what micro syncs are and how SyncFloor is innovating in this space.
Sure. So the sort of overarching need that's being addressed by micro licensing and micro licensing frameworks is that the typically access to highly desirable commercial music has been sort of fraught with difficulty in the context of licensing, either because of the complexity of the rights regime around them, or just the complexity of discovery. When you think about, as you pointed out earlier, the explosion of need in terms of creators out there across many different types of sectors, whether that's podcasting or advertising or gaming or social audio or fitness, etc. What you're seeing is this sort of explosion of need, and a lot of new players coming into it who don't have the same understanding of sort of, well, what are all these different types of music rights, and which ones match my particular experience that I'm trying to do, etc. So they're looking for very simple end-to-end solutions. And in addition, they don't know where to go, because with that explosion in sort of need, there's also a matched explosion in the available content, right? And when you look at, let's say, the indie ecosystem, which is this fantastic ecosystem, right? It's got, I tell people all the time that the dominant narrative people tended to have was, major label known good, DIY unknown bad was sort of the thing that they thought it was all about. And we tell people all the time, well, here's this professional, commercial, independent ecosystem that's responsible for something like 40% of the economic activity in the music business. But what's really difficult to get your arms around is that it's very fragmented. And so both discovery and complexity of rights became this big issue. And so what sort of micro licensing frameworks are trying to do is to say, well, given all this need, and given need where they can't tolerate, right, very, very complex ways of doing workflow around licensing, because they need to sort of do things in batches. Take a fitness class, for instance. You need to be able to pull together your playlist, curate that experience, and just go with respect to a live or a live to VOD or VOD class that you're trying to do. And so what we've done is, at SyncFloor is sort of collapse a lot of that complexity by both aggregating lots and lots of great independent music, focusing on music where the rights regime is less complex. So in this case, One Stop, just like, sort of Bodega Sync focuses on. And by doing so, and then taking technology and, allowing people to go very simply from discovery through curation, through licensing, right? It sort of changes the whole perspective on how you interact with content that you need for your creative project. And what's really exciting is that we've built end-to-end experiences for that, and fitness is a particular place where we've done so. What we look to the future is the fact that once you've built a platform for this, you can start to get really programmatic about it. And if you're programmatic about it, now you can start to think about how these things integrate into the background for streaming for a game, right? And how they integrate as part of an app for social audio and things like that, right? And so that's really the promise in some sense of micro licensing.
I feel like there's often a risk for companies and also independent artists to work with a platform that sort of prices their stuff for them and sort of allows for a broad range of licensing. One of the reasons I like personally working with SyncFloor is that you can set a threshold at which if something is either a certain level of public, like it's on TV, or a certain price range, that you can negotiate it just like a regular thing. So you can make sure that you're not allowing NBC to come license stuff for like $3. It's obviously like a concern that you want to make sure you get the most amount of value. The cool thing is that SyncFloor and a lot of other companies like MusicBed, SongTrader, there's lots of different companies sort of innovating in this space, are trying to give people who control all their rights access to things that even if you had a sync rep, you couldn't reach. And the idea is to sort of flip the script of saying, like, my job is to go find music supervisors in Hollywood who are working on a TV show who have a budget and convince them to use our music. And then the difference here is that the idea is to invite people to use this platform to discover music for whatever they're working on, and just make the process painfully easy for them to be able to just click a button and sort of get it like a vending machine. And it's a very, very, very complicated thing. And I'm glad that people like Kurt exist because, licensing is really complicated. And I think that there's a threshold in which, people have been cut out of it, and people who want to pay for music have not been able to do so because it's just too complicated. And because frankly, like, people don't want to take your phone calls for $50, but a lot of people paying $50 is a ton of money.
Yep, that's right. And what we found is that you want to tier this, right? So we take sort of opportunities around micro licensing, with things like fitness or podcasting, etc., all the way up through negotiated licenses for anything else. But what we've done is smooth the experience, right? Using technology so that you can access this stuff in very similar ways, and then also in programmatic ways. And so that really sort of changes the game, as you say, in terms of inviting people in, inviting new players into this idea of properly legally licensing great commercial music. And that's the thing we want to encourage, the thing that we want to smooth over. I think there's a clip that we should be able to get there with you saying, so easy, it's painful.
Anytime you want. Okay, cool. So Bank Robber Music, Lyle's company, has been around for as long as I can remember, but in recent years, they've launched a number of strategic partnerships and ventures that expanded the services that they offer. Lyle, what are some of these services and how do they intersect with your core business?
Well, a long time ago, we started a publishing company just because a lot of our bands weren't registered, right? So we were getting them on TV shows back in the day. So since it was so long ago, John, it was the Munsters. I mean, it was a long time ago. So the bands were getting on Grey's Anatomy and they weren't registered. So we were just helping them out. So,
Recent is a relative term.
yes. So, so that happened and that was called House of Hassle. And long story short, we were able to purchase Rough Trade Publishing. And so we just changed the name of that. Same thing though, just helping out bands, registering admins, basically the old school Bug model for those at home who remember what Bug music was. And so that's been part of the expansion. And then over the COVID thing, we started a music house called Academy Fight Songs. And in that we are doing all the music house stuff, composing, music beds, writing for picture, and also pre-clears and all that stuff. Because Bank Robber is specifically hired by artists and labels, a lot of our stuff can't go into this word I've never really heard before, micro licensing. We can't really do that stuff. The bands and labels aren't hiring us to do that. They want to get licenses. And even though fees have become pretty much garbage over the past 15 years, there's various levels of garbage, I guess. So we are still out there. Bank Robber is still the driver, and getting licenses is the main way to get the wheel to go around here. So, but Academy Fight Songs.
So in terms of Academy Fight Songs,
Yeah, I was going back to that.
The model works differently. So this is something our clients ask us all the time. Like, do we send out briefs and can people write music to picture? And we tell them, please don't do that because it's not really our business model. I mean, we do a very small amount of it, but in general, it's a very different type of business. But it is something that I see a lot of artists wanting to do. So it's cool that you do that, and you obviously have access to tons of talent. So can you talk a little bit about how that works, like in terms of, is it work for hire versus licensing, and sort of what's involved in the process?
I mean, it definitely was. We've always done it. Even Bank Robber did it, but I would have to add an additional thing. Like if you are going to compose the picture, we have to, because since we were label based, it didn't really fall into the model. So yeah, we had to expand this into the publishing and to Academy Fight Song. That if someone, and it's definitely driven by that none of the bands were making money. Every band is bored right now, right? They're trying to tour, they're trying to get out there, and there's not a lot to do. So they're all like, what can we do? And so yeah, we were just sending them briefs, whatever, write a song for Sad Doctors in the Rain. I don't know. I mean, that's always like a thing. Like bands are like, how do we get more placements? And I'm like, never write for TV. Don't write for the Sad Doctors in the Rain.
Right.
The best song, our biggest licensing jams. I don't think Spoon wrote The Underdog thinking that Peter Parker was going to fight some schmucks on the subway to that song. It was just like, they don't even say the word The Underdog in it. It just said it works. So, it's like, that's what, so, but in this case though, with Academy Fight Songs, now we're saying, fine, right? The doctors are sad and it's raining, and we'll see if it lands, or,
Right.
I mean, and there's way more exciting briefs than that, because, everybody needs swagger jams and, walking into the club jams, and,
Right.
I got a flat tire on the highway jams. I don't know, whatever, it seems like you
Togetherness songs about platonic family love.
Yes. Oh yeah. Holiday. How about this one this season? Holiday, but not too holiday-ish.
Right. Non-denominational holiday. A song
But not
about loving your fellow man, but it's got sleigh bells in the background.
But not too celebratory, because we're still a little sad, because it's still the pandemic, and it can't have the word Friday in it. Like, it's just like they really have gotten really specific with some of their requests.
So how involved are you guys in the creative process? I mean, are you overseeing this, or are you just giving briefs and seeing what they come up with and pitching it if it's not bad?
Depends on the artist. Some artists are really like, dude, tell us what you think. And some are, they're still kind of failed rock stars and they don't want to really work that hard on it. So, but it's just, it depends. It's band to band. Right. But the best thing that's happened is, over the decades, like, please write this as an Apple brief. Oh, it didn't land in that. And you get it in the Target. It's like good to have that well of songs that maybe the band wouldn't have written, just in their arsenal. And then, money is money.
Does Bank Robber keep those as one-stops, or how does that work?
If the band is composing for the picture to us, yeah.
Yeah, if they create something for Apple and it doesn't land, like, can
Yeah.
you pitch it as a one-stop afterwards,
d-
or is it
Well, it depends if the band's on the label,
right?
and it also depends if they are writing for Academy Fight songs. But usually,
Right.
yeah, again, it's all artist to artist. Yeah.
Cool. What we tend to do is we have done a little bit of that. Like if we have an opportunity to do it and we think that we have a client who is capable of doing it, because I think everybody thinks that they could write the brief. It's much harder than people think that it is, because like Lyle was alluding to, you never literally hit the brief. You're always supposed to like hit right outside of it. So like if it's about walking in the rain, you don't use the word rain. You talk about like what it feels like to be in the rain. Like maybe it's about being cold outside or whatever. And that's a really complicated thing to process while also keeping your vibe. You know, I think a lot of people sort of step really far out of what they're doing and it becomes a problem. I always advise people to on how like not to write songs, what things to sort of stay away from, but to always keep within their own voice. And if they're asking for, you know, what types of things are we, you know, don't have enough of, there's always an answer to that question. But oftentimes when you tell somebody what to write a song about, they write not a great song about it.
Well, I usually also tell them that we don't have to use their name. So I'm like,
Sure.
bring us your worst. Bring us your most awful, hand slapping, cheering piece of garbage. And we'll get
And
it
that turns into their biggest hit.
and it turns
And
into
they
their
realize that
biggest
they've been
license.
doing everything wrong the whole time.
Yeah, no, it's happened a couple of times. It's a little bit of a nightmare, but it's a good nightmare. You know, it's it's like, okay, you got some bread now. Make your record, make your unlicensable record. Knock it out. So you know, it's but I mean, it's the challenge. You know, some bands, like you said, are just born to do this stuff and they crush it. And then some bands just stink at it. You know, it's just just how they roll.
Right.
So that's a hard conversation to have, though. Like, dude,
for sure,
you're kind of bad.
I think a big part of the job for us is managing everybody's expectations all the time. It's always like everyone's excited about the idea of this, but you know.
Yeah, I tell them to expect nothing. You will get no licenses. Nothing will happen. And anything
Does it say that in your
is,
contract?
I mean, that's basically a spiel. Like, don't base your marketing plan around this.
Right.
Don't base your forecast. Don't base your plan around it. This is all gravy. It always has just been gravy. You can't count on that. Even you know, I'm working with some I work with some big bands and big releases, and you know, sometimes they still don't hit when they drop records. You never know, and that's hard, and that's why you're talking about labels or like we can do it ourselves. It's like, no, you can't.
Right.
Your expectations will be different, and you might be paying some schmuck less in commission, but you probably won't make it up in licenses.
Right.
That's that's how I see it.
Okay, so here's a more general question for everybody, so feel free to chime in. Considering how many different types of sync reps there are out there, content owners are faced with an overwhelming number of options. Some work on commission, others take ownership of your rights, and some charge a subscription price for access to music supervisors and briefs. If you were an independent artist looking to get into sync, how would you go about navigating all the different kinds of rep deals and finding the right fit?
Oh my God, do not pay anybody up front. Do not do that. That is like insane that people do that stuff. Do not give over any of your writer credit. Do not, we are the good guys. Don't make us the bad guys. We are still basically trying to help the bands out and make a living and, and enjoy all this stuff. But anyone who's going in to be the worst person in the planet and try to take your rights away, do not do that, And I also think if they're asking, some of these people are asking for like 50% commission and stuff, nuke them. There's a lot. This isn't like 15 years ago and there's only like 10 of us doing this shit. There's a lot of people doing this. You can find someone to pitch your jams. You do not have to sign up with Hitler licensing. You don't have to do that one. Stay away.
Avoid like the plague.
Yeah, please.
I'll wholeheartedly agree that there's, I like the perspective on like, hey, we're here to be, the good ones and really support bands and support artists. And another thing I tend to tell artists is that, look, you have so many options, and especially Katrina mentioned this, right? There's so many ways that the trend is towards services, right? And so given that, like, you don't have to even be exclusive. You don't have to, like, really, you can go find people to help put your stuff into sectors, right? And make sure that the commission's low, make sure that you have the option to do what you need to do, make sure you're not giving away your rights, all those things, right? It's super important. And I say this to labels as well. I say it's to labels and publishers, especially since in the independent sector, to something that Lyle mentioned, a lot of them are essentially realizing that, okay, well, to go do business, it's better for me as much as possible to have a significant portion of my catalog where I have full control, right? To the same model that you do, John, right? And once you have that, like, give yourself option value. Don't let anybody take it away, right? And I think that's really critical. And the percentages don't have to be high. That's a thing of the past.
Yeah, and I think if you do non-exclusive deals with partners as well, making sure that they kind of specialize in different areas so there isn't overlapping, because that's going to be a mess and it's going to do yourself a disservice. Supervisor's going to be pissed. Everyone's going to be annoyed. So just like make sure everyone's really over communicating when you are doing non-exclusives.
I really do not do non-exclusives on masters. I mean, that is a hot mess. And then you end up arguing with some other pitching company that you pitched it. And,
nobody likes it. You lose deals. It's now.
Yeah,
we work exclusively as well. And it honestly, like, I tell people all the time, like, if you want a non-exclusive deal, there are tons of them out there, but I feel like you kind of get what you pay for. I think companies that do exclusive deals will give you a ton more attention. And, if they say like, well, I'm giving up the ability to work with another company, it's like, dude, we're doing a ton of work and spending money. Like, I even explained to them, it's like, we pay for disco, right? And like, we pay by the track, and like, we pay for like their auto tag services. Like, I'm flying out and doing meetings with people. We're literally spending money to try to make you money, and we're doing it all on spec. And we could do a 2-year deal with you and get nothing. And it doesn't mean that we didn't work our butts off. It means that, like, you just walk away with all your rights and we don't make any money. And, in a lot of cases, I think that companies that do non-exclusive deals, they tend to want, I could sign non-exclusive deals with people all day long. I work for a distributor, so I could just do like 100 deals a day and just say, we could maybe, license your music. But I mean, I think the ones that are doing exclusive deals also have to think about, like, who are we putting on our roster, and, what is the, overall, like, it's more of a boutique kind of vibe. And same thing with labels, right? You can be on a major label and that's really exciting, but unless you're in their top 10% most important clients, you have to work to get them to pay attention to you. And, I think that's true of, I would be wary of companies that have millions and millions and millions of tracks, because, chances are that they just don't have the resources to be able to pay attention to your music. And maybe once a year, your music will go into a pitch.
I mean, look, we have a lot of labels and a lot of bands, but we don't have a lot of, especially over the last 5 years or so, 10 years, it's like we've really diversified our thing, that if someone's asking for, white sad guys, okay, I got a lot of white sad guys. But if somebody needs like electronic or hip hop or catalog music, we don't have a ton of that. So it's like, you're not going up against 1,000 other tracks. You're going up, if your track doesn't win, it's probably because you lost to some other agency. And that's an important thing to stress to these people. Even if you have a larger catalog, it's like, if you don't win, your track just didn't win. It's not because we didn't try to get it out there. Like John was saying, we work with artists for years and we make no money on them. And that's just the game, that's part of the gig. And then you get one license for them and they're like, did you pitch it? Why are we paying you? It came to us directly. They found us on Spotify. It's like all this garbage that you have to kind of filter through. And it's like, no, but we've been helped building your brand. We're out there on networks and the socials and all that BS, and we're out hyping you guys too. And you're not paying for us to do that either. So we're just trying to get.
I can't think of any other service in the music industry that works this hard for no upfront money. Like, it really is like kind of unique in a sense. Like, obviously you get signed to a publisher or label, they'll give you an advance, but they're giving you an advance based on the fact that they know that you're going to make that money back and they own your rights. So that's a transaction. It's not like doing work for nothing. Like PR companies, people pay PR companies thousands of dollars for no results, and they just pay them anyway. There's like a lot of services that, like you said, like all the things that we're sort of saying, you know, don't ever do that. You know, sync reps, we're all working on spec pretty much, and we put in a lot of effort.
We're like, I mean, I always say this, like, we're like shoe salesmen, but we're not even working for a specific shoe store. So we're just working on pure commission,
Like
trying to get the
shoe salesman on the street, like street shoe salesman.
Like, yeah, you need your triumphant joy shoe, I got that over here. You need your happy shoe song, I got that over here. Size 11, you know, no curses, they're over there. I don't know, it just, you know, yeah. I mean, it's been obviously, I mean, I'm sorry, it's been a rough couple of years, right, guys? You know, it's like we've been really working really hard, and you know, and the fees are down and the demands are up from all our clients. You know, everyone's really kind of freaking out, and
everyone's starting a sync company, by the way. So many new sync companies I see come through. I'm like, oh wow.
Every bad sync name I've thought of over the past 10 years has now been used. I'm looking at you, Kitchen.
All the funds are locked down.
I'm looking at you, Kitchen Sink. I've been waiting. I've been waiting. Who's gonna take that one? No one will ever use that one. Oh, someone.
So I'll go with a contrary opinion here, which is that it's based on two things. One, totally agree, lots and lots of hard work on spec. I think ultimately with growing catalogs, it means that what you have to do as an artist is make sure that the person is working well for you in whatever sectors you think you're appropriate for. And in that sense, I don't think you have to, again, I don't think you have to think about it as it's got to be exclusive versus not. You have to make sure that you're working with somebody who has the same values as you, right? And that's actually the most important thing, right? Somebody you feel you can trust. The other thing is that the diversity of demand is exploding, right? And so in that sense, right, it's not only about the things we traditionally think of for, you know, film or TV or even advertising, right? Like the advertisers, agencies now, what we're seeing is that they're having to turn content constantly, because it's not just about traditional advertising, it's about content marketing. It's about being a voice for a particular, you know, you're the voice of Barbie on the Mattel TikTok, right? And you have to churn out lots and lots of content, right? All those things mean that the diversity of demand can pull through your stuff in ways that we hadn't really conceived of before, right? And so in that sense, again, you know, there's a lot more opportunity to, one, be your true self. I think everybody here has kind of talked about that, and I think that's really important, is that don't go writing the thing for the thing, right? Be your true self, because diversity of demand is starting to pull through, right? Stuff that nobody had even conceived of as being interesting for quote unquote traditional sync.
I have to say, excellent use of writing thing for the thing. That is so like perfect. That was perfect. Sorry.
You're more than welcome to use it.
Oh no, I speak that all the time. Can you send me the thing for the thing? Just that you like went right in there. I was so psyched. Yeah.
I was gonna say,
sorry,
my company does not have a particular sound. Like our whole thing has been since day one that our A&R strategy is based on the briefs that we get. So I tell people, like, you know, if I get 5 briefs for Cambodian music, I'm going to be looking for Cambodian artists. But if I don't, I'm not going to sign anything that's not in demand. And I try to use that as a guiding factor. And I could totally agree with Kurt that I keep getting asked for stuff that we don't have. And we have a really, really diverse range of stuff, and it's really hard to keep up with the random things. So, I mean, it's not like we're chasing down, you know, really obscure things based on one brief, but we're always trying to pay attention to what the trends are. And again, because we're part of a distribution company, we have access to like artists from around the world. They make all different kinds of stuff, and it's changing all the time. And it's exciting to be able to get placements for people who make what I would call weird music. And I say that lovingly as a person who made 2 records of really weird music that nobody likes. And now people are kind of interested in my weird music. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like 10 years ago, everyone would have just like laughed at it. So it's really cool that, you know, if you do something really, really well, that you're kind of on the fringes, you can find somebody who can get a placement for you. And I think that that's really cool.
I mean, all
I think-
the wheels are off the bus. You know, it's like,
Yep.
yeah, like when Bank Robber was really crushing it, it was like, you know, it was like Death Cab and Spoon and Not a Surf and all that stuff. You know, Grey's Anatomy and OC and Gilmore Girls, and you know, and unfortunately, I've spent the last 10 years telling everybody we have more than just that, because you
Right.
have to have more than just that to keep going.
Yep.
So you just can't be like, I'm a indie pitcher. You got to be like indie of
But Lyle,
everything.
you got those marquee acts to pull people into the door, which is
Yeah, but
also
they're-
like you got really good bait, man. So like
Yeah,
you bring them in,
well,
you're
no-
like, check out this weird electronic music we
don't worry, they're all leaving because they all think somebody else can do a better job. So don't you worry about that. But yeah, we've got a few killers that definitely still do it. But you know, but the more exciting stuff is catalog and all the 50s and 60s stuff and all the exciting stuff that people really need now, which I didn't have before, and which I don't think the requests were there that much before.
Yep.
You know, I call that the Mad Men effect, but that's for a whole nother panel.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're just about out of time. I just want to thank everybody for participating. It was a great conversation. A lot of laughs, like a few tears. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for participating.
Thanks for having us, John.
Thank
Yeah,
you, buddy
thanks for
boy. It's
having
good
us.
seeing everybody. Hope to see everybody in
Yeah.
the real world.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Stay safe, everybody.